Right, so the whole issue of gun control is an issue that's gotten really big as of late in Canada. You got the Trudeau government pushing for gun control, you got the mayor of Toronto, you got the Toronto City Council are all pushing for, outright handgun bans, semi-auto bans. And the first thing you need to talk about is that when they're talking about this kind of stuff, they're lying to people. They always say, well, assault rifle, or assault weapons. Now, what the average person thinks of when they hear that is semi-autos, but that's not or is the scary looking guns, I guess, is a better way of putting it. But assault rifles are already banned in Canada. Fully auto. The actual definition of an assault rifle is a gun that has the ability to fire fully automatic. Now those are already prohibited in Canada. They're prohibited. So what they're really talking about is semi-automatic guns, most of which are already restricted, which means there's already very strict regulations on them. You can only shoot them at the range. They have to be locked up at all times when they're not at the range. You need a piece of paper that says you can take it to and from the range. They need to be registered. There's tons of laws, more than you can count, already on these kind of guns. Now, the other point I wanted to bring up, I guess the first point I should bring up, is that in this interview, with the Toronto Chief of Police cited that 82% of guns, at least in Toronto, that they recovered at crime scenes were obtained from the States, which means they're already illegal. Another thing that would mean is that implementing more gun control, or even an outright ban, would at most have an 18% effect on crime. Now, the point I would bring up is that even if you did ban guns, the demand wouldn't go away. The demand would still be there. So my guess is that if you outright banned them, at most you drop 5-10% at most. And in my mind, that's a pretty bad position to hold, because spending all this time and effort for a 5-10% drop in crime is pretty negligible, when if you actually put that time and effort into curbing gangs, gang violence, if you put time and effort into reducing the chances of people, young men's likelihood of ending up in gangs, if you stopped importing so many people that, immigrants that end up in gangs. Now, let's not lie to ourselves. I think anyone with a brain and who looks at the data with a open, unbiased opinion can find out that immigrants, first generation, second generation, are more likely to end up in these kinds of things. I mean, look at I seen a picture the other day of the Toronto's Most Wanted, I think it was, and they were all either black, or I think they're pretty much all black, to be honest. And not that, like I say, I will throw out the caveat, because people always bring this up. You would never judge individuals. I understand that, but if groups of people act differently as a group, it's okay to judge them differently as a group. That's not prejudice or bigoted or any of that kind of stuff. It would be prejudiced or bigoted when that group of people doesn't act differently and you judge them differently. That would be bigoted or racist or whatever. And the problem is that no one seems to understand that. The best example is that, not the best, but a good example is young men are charged more for car insurance. And everyone knows the reason is that young men are more likely to get in accidents, get tickets, all that kind of stuff. Now, individual young men, well, you don't know. But as a group, they cost more. But according to the leftist theory, that's a bigoted, sexist way of thinking by insurance companies. But yet you never hear anyone point that out, because they know that they're wrong. They know that immigrant, people, whether it's Africa, Middle East, whatever, are more likely to commit crime. Like, everyone knows that. I mean, some people just don't admit it, but everyone knows that. So that's something that we should focus on, is that when we're bringing these people in, when we're resettling them, I think it should be happening at a much lower rate. But if we're going to do it this way, we need to be more careful about it. We can't just throw them all into an area willy-nilly and expect for it to work out, because it clearly isn't working out. Sweden's a very good example of this. You know, crime there is through the roof. Toronto, I mean, they're having a big issue, and it's just not working out. So we need to address the actual issues to deal with crime, and it's not gun control. Like, if you think that it's gun control, you more than likely just want to ban guns, and you're justifying it because, you know, this tiny marginal single digit percent drop in gun crime, basically. And, you know, if you look at the UK, well, they have very strict gun control. They always have. But there it's knife crime. Like, people are getting stabbed left, right, and center. Same with Sweden. And in North America, that's just not the case. There's so many guns that, even in Canada, people think that Canada doesn't have a lot of guns. It has a lot of guns. I mean, it's mainly because we're normally compared to the States, which is by far the most in the world. But compared to the average country, we actually have quite a few guns. And especially non-restricteds, like, you can have a decent amount of firepower in Canada, but that's another story in and of itself. But the main point I wanted to get across is that 82% of guns are guns used in crime are sourced out of the country. So thinking that gun control is going to fix the problem is asinine, like completely asinine. And I would bet money that if gun control was implemented, people would just go get their more and more guns from the States, because the demand wouldn't go away. Like, thinking that by banning guns the demand's gonna go away is the same as thinking that banning drugs is gonna make the demand go away. Like, why not just ban meth? Well, you know, just happens to be that it already is illegal. You know, why not just ban opioids? Well, just happens to be that you need prescription, and a lot of the ones that people use are illegal. So it's such backwards thinking, and there's really no logic behind it. So I'm gonna leave the video there. I think I've got the point across, but like I said too, just believing this kind of stuff is just so crazy, and a lot of, I mean, people on the left don't get it, the overwhelming majority, and a lot of people on the right are going along with, oh yeah, we do need more gun control. Like, no, we don't. It's not going to do anything. It's the same as thinking banning drugs is going to, you know, stop people from using drugs. Prohibition doesn't work. It never has, never will. So I'll leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.